Greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to the best damn movie-related show on the planet Earth, the John Campea Show, coming to you from right here on my YouTube channel. I am, of course, your host, John Campea, and it is an awesome honor and privilege, as it is every day, to have you, our international friends, joining us as we talk about our favorite things in the world: movies, movie news, entertainment, some television, all the stuff, good and bad, going on in this crazy world of ours. And I'm so glad you decided to spend part of your time today hanging out here with us. And by us, I, of course, mean me. It is traditionally, around here on Thursdays, we have, as Aaron Cummings has coined it, No Pants Thursdays, where we normally have Chris and Aaron in. However, today I am flying solo, and one of the big reasons we are flying solo today is because, just to give you guys a heads up, until further notice, I guess, I am going to absolutely maximize the number of people I have here in studio to one, outside of myself. So just having one person in, no more than one. And really usually I try not to have I'm trying during this period of time not to have anybody in studio. But today we do not have Chris or Aaron. We were going to have Aaron come in at one point, but she has something come up, so she can't be in here today. So it is just you and me, an intimate little gathering as we get together, lock eyes on one another, and fall deeply in love with more and more of the movies. Anyway, last night was pretty interesting. For me, last night was pretty interesting to me. Now, Ann and I have been, going and using social distancing, maybe to an extreme, but we feel that's kind of important. So, Ann's working from home, I'm working from home. We only go to the grocery store when we absolutely have to. Try to use the delivery services. We're not going to coffee shops, and we're not going to, whatever. We're not getting together in groups, all that kind of stuff. And when we do want to try to get outside and stretch our legs, we usually try to wait till it's later. Streets are empty, nobody for us to bump into, maintain 6 feet of distance, all that kind of stuff. Doing what we need to do to try to get this BS behind us as fast as we can. So last night, we wait until later in the evening and everybody's, the streets are empty. So Ann and I decided to go for our walk last night. And we decided, let's walk down to the AMC Burbank 16, which is, of course, one of the busiest movie theaters in the world. And it's on this promenade with all these restaurants and bars and entertainment. I mean, there's always hundreds, if not thousands of people always down there. And we thought, look, I just want to go see it. And so while we were out for our walk last night, streets, of course, completely empty. And we get down to the AMC Burbank 16 to that promenade. And I took this picture, which was just eerie. It was just eerie. It reminded me a little bit of like a 28 Days Later. It seemed like a little bit like a 28 Days Later kind of a situation. You know what I mean? Where I'm used to being down there. Ann and I go down to this promenade all the time. We go down here all the time. And it's always, again, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people. And just being down there and just quiet. You could hear a pin drop. There wasn't even much traffic on the road, which was really weird. So just taking that picture. But the good news about that, as Ann and I kind of were speaking about how eerie it was, seeing the place so empty, was the good thing is we looked into the restaurants and things like that. There were some restaurants open that were doing delivery, but it was great to see that there were only people coming out. It was like delivery people coming out. There weren't people going to the ice cream shops or to the coffee shops. There was just orders. So it's the good thing about seeing that last night was made me go, people are actually doing the right thing. People are actually doing the right thing. They're not going and congregating in these places and all that kind of stuff. I thought that's kind of positive to see. Did you guys see? Well, and we'll get into the movie stuff here in a second. I get to get this off my chest because I'm sure a lot of you guys have seen this too. Have you guys seen what's going on down in Florida with these idiot 21-year-olds? And I got to ask the question, is every 21-year-old on the planet an idiot? I'm just honestly wondering. And I asked that of myself too. Were we this stupid when we were 21? We probably were. We were probably this stupid. We were just too stupid to know that we were stupid. So I think it is a birthright, a passage, if you will, that when we hit 21, we're just automatically idiots for that, like that 1 year. We're just totally stupid at 21. But I'm watching these videos coming out of Florida where spring break is going on and they're not closing the beaches. They got hundreds, if not thousands of people getting together. And like when reporters are asking some of these kids, it's like, don't you think this is stupid of you to be like congregating like this? You could become a transmitter and you could make the problem worse. And I just seen these videos. Have you seen these? Of these idiot 21-year-olds, like this one girl, I've been planning all year for this. This would be really inconvenient. I've planned for a whole year. And I'm like, you are so stupid and ignorant. And I don't know. But I think, to be fair, again, I think we were all probably for those of us who were over 21, I think all of us were probably that stupid at 21. I think we were all probably that dumb. And then we grow out of it. Maybe. I don't know. Maybe we do, maybe we don't. But anyway, a lot of great stuff. Listen, guys, we do have a bunch of stuff to talk about here today. We're going to talk about a new report's come out about AMC theaters and can they even survive? Will there be an AMC theaters when this whole thing is done? We're going to talk about that a little bit. Looking long term, how could next year's Oscars at all, if at all, be affected by what's going on right now? Bloodshot is the latest movie to be announced is going to go to streaming early. We're going to talk about that. Tom Cruise is still working on Mission Impossible 7. We'll talk about that. I've got a movie recommendation for things you should watch at home. It's going to be a controversial one, but I stand by it, damn it. That and a few things more. But before we get to any of that stuff, we got one thing to talk about here off the top, and that is this. Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, we joke a lot about that it was like 5 years ago, give or take a little bit of time, but it was about 5 years ago when at CinemaCon in Las Vegas, I was there, a bunch of people were there, they announced Dwayne "The Rock", made it official, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, as the rumors had persisted for quite some time, was going to be Black Adam. And then year after year after year after year passed with no news. Now, apparently, they say they're going to film later this year. We'll see if that actually happens or not. And it seems like, at any rate, that this whole Black Adam thing is finally starting to come together in some way. Well, not only have we been waiting for 5 years, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson has just come out now and described that he has actually been working on Black Adam for a hell of a lot longer than that. And it was years before any of us even knew he was trying to get a Black Adam movie together. And this is what Dwayne Johnson said. He says, Black Adam has been with me for over 10 years now, more than a decade. That gives you an idea of how passionate I am about this project, how passionate our $7 is. $7 is production company. How passionate our $7 is about this project. Warner Brothers, New Line Cinemas, DC, they have been so incredibly supportive over the years. In 2008 was when we first started talking about this. 2008 is when they started talking about this. It was in 2008 when we first started talking about this, so it has required patience by all of us as partners. And I'm a much different man and actor than I was 10 years ago. Even then, 10 years ago, I just wanted to wait for the timing to feel right. And it feels like now. The man that I've become, I'm able to bring a little bit of my own life lessons and philosophies and ingrain them into the DNA of this character. So that's what Dwayne Johnson's saying. Want to wait for the right time. Now, I believe that's a little bit of BS. I love The Rock. But I believe that's a little bit of BS because to me, so if 5 years ago wasn't the right time, why were you coming out on stages and making public announcements 5 years ago? Clearly, the original plan was to have this thing in motion a long time ago. So I don't buy this whole thing. Oh, no, we always wanted to wait till the right time and do it now. No, you didn't. If that was the case, you wouldn't have made the announcement 5 years ago. But whatever. I am nonetheless thrilled that we are finally going to get a Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson as Black Adam. And I'll tell you what, I've always been excited about the idea of Dwayne Johnson playing Black Adam. I've always liked the idea. I was very hyped about it right from the first, shows that we did after this news came out ages ago, years and years ago. I was totally pumped and stoked about it. But my excitement for Black Adam has only increased since seeing Shazam. Seeing Shazam, which was not a huge blockbuster hit, it at least made a little bit of money, but it wasn't a big hit. It should have been a big hit because the movie's fantastic. But since seeing Shazam, that movie for me really got my blood pumping again for a Black Adam thing. To see how Black Adam would tie into a world like this, it just increased my anticipation. So whatever the case may be, whether they're able to start shooting this thing on time, the way they're said they're going to, whether the whole virus situation caused them to push off a little bit more. I'm just really happy it seems to be coming. And I guess for someone like Dwayne Johnson, who's been working on this thing for apparently 10 years, it must feel extra sweet. So here's hoping, fingers crossed, this thing can still move forward as planned at this point. All right. With that down and out of the way, let's move on to our first main topic today. And our first main topic today, you know what, before I get to our first main topic, I guess I should tell you guys how you send in the main topics. How do we select our main topics here in the John Campea Show? Well, it's really rather simple. You see, you guys come up with them by going 24/7 anytime over to www.thejohncampeashow.com/contact. Once you guys get there, you're going to see a form. Fill it out with your topic or question. It's totally free. Hit submit, and then maybe, just maybe, you might see your submission as a featured topic here on the John Campea Show. With that down, let's now move on to main topic number 1. And our first main topic today gets submitted to us by one of our Patreon supporters, Cal L, who writes, and thank you for being a Patreon supporter, Cal L. Greetings from Ottawa. I love Ottawa. I read an article today from The Wrap about AMC theaters may not survive after the COVID-19 stuff. I wanted to hear your thoughts on this and the movie industry in general. All right, thanks a lot for sending that in, Cal-El. And yes, look, with the movie theater shutting down, we talked a few times this week in the past, or over the last week or so, about how this is going to be cataclysmic for the movie theater industry. You know, a lot of people think movie theaters, they're just loaded with money and all this. They're not. I know it feels that way. I know it kind of looks that way when you see these palaces that are movie theaters. But believe me when I tell you, the movie theater industry is a razor-thin margin business. And this type of a thing is going to hit them in a horribly tough way. But even saying that, my confidence as a consumer that AMC as a theater is still going to be there in and of themselves has remained quite high. However, a new report coming out of The Wrap is suggesting there's a bunch of industry analysts who are questioning whether AMC can even survive this situation. I'm going to read a little bit this at length. Again, this comes to us from The Wrap. We are witnessing the single greatest disruption of the film industry in American history, said Eric Schiffer, CEO of the private equity firm, the Patriarch Organization. Now, they go on to write about a number of things, including their doubt that AMC can survive this. The debt-laden exhibitor stock price has dropped 83% in the last year, finishing Tuesday's trading session below $3 a share, as its market cap has shrunk to just $271 million. All of this raises questions about whether it will still be left standing when the dust of COVID-19 eventually settles. I don't see how they survive this, said Eric Schiffer, CEO of the private equity firm, the Patriarch Organization. And R. Bailey, FBR analyst Eric World on Wednesday downgraded AMC's stock from a buy rating to a neutral and cut the price target to $3.50 from $13. Basically, what this goes on to explain is the fact that we have a situation here where this is so critical and so tough. And, you know, the article also goes on to explain that in the last number of years, AMC's also been spending a lot of money buying up, you know, other movie theater chains. I believe they bought up Cinemark is who they bought up, and launching one of the big expenses they've had is launching the AMC A-List, which went through the first year and a half of its existence losing AMC money, and only in the last quarter of last year actually started to turn a profit. Now, that's something AMC always anticipated. They knew they would operate at a loss on AMC A-List for a while, and then hopefully as it caught on, it would start to show a profit, and it did start to show a profit before this whole kind of mess hit. So we have some analysts sitting here saying that because of the unique position that AMC is in, they're having their doubts whether or not the company is even still going to be here at all. Now, not all of these analysts share that same dismal appraisal. Some feel a little bit more hopeful. As the article goes on and says, this is another analyst saying, not only do we view this as a unique and strategic move being taken by Universal, now talking about the number of movies that are now going straight to DVD or straight to home video, right? The analysts are saying they don't see this as being a long-term problem. They say, not only do we view this as a unique and strategic move being taken by Universal to take advantage of the significant marketing dollars that have been spent ahead of those releases, and to counter the adverse impacts of social distancing and recently impacted movie-going demand, we continue to believe that this is not a strategy that can be financially successful for most big-budget, high-profile titles, and would expect this move, and possibly others, to be very unique to the near-term outlook and not one that would linger into the second half of 2020 or 2021, and that the theaters will reopen to the public. We will assume, now this is what they go on to say, so they don't believe that this whole thing about movies going to streaming early is going to be long lasting. They believe this is a short-term thing in response to the very unique situation that we're in. We assume that attendance and revenues are essentially eliminated until at least the end of April, he continued. Although this will create a meaningful strain on AMC's balance sheet in the coming weeks, we believe the company has the ability to preserve necessary cash by reducing variable operating expenses and near-term capital expenditure spending. So what we've got here is we've got different points of view. We have certain analysts saying, we don't see how AMC survives this at all. But then again, we have other analysts saying, look, a lot of this stuff is unique, temporary. We believe AMC has enough cash revenue and they're doing the right things to reduce operating expenses, that we believe that once movie theater going picks back up, we believe they can survive this. So it's a very, very scary time. If you're, for everybody, but if you are in the movie theater industry, this is a particularly scary time. So it's going to be interesting to see how Regal, how Alamo Drafthouse, how the biggest movie theater chain in the world, AMC Theaters, are going to be able to bounce back from this once the dust settles. We're going to have to wait and see. The question here is, guys, what do you think about this? Are you like a lot of us that you think of these movie theater chains, they're just Goliaths, they're unshakable, nothing can bring them down? Or are you starting to see like, man, these guys could be in trouble? What do you think? Jump down to the comment section below and let me know your thoughts. All right, with that down, let's move on to main topic number 2. And our second main topic today gets sent in to us by Dalroy, who writes, long time, first time. Thank you so much, Dalroy. Love the show. So with all these movies getting pushed back or postponed this year, what do you think will happen with the Oscars for this next upcoming Oscars? Will Bloodshot win Best Picture outright because it was the last movie released before the world shut down? Joking, but seriously, what do you think will happen with the Oscars? All right, thanks a lot for sending that in, man. And yeah, of course, listen, I myself put up a tweet the other day of a graphic somebody sent me. Somebody sent me this graphic and I retweeted it that was like, the next Oscars, Best Picture nominees, Sonic, The Way Home, or this, and just all the movies that have already come out, Fantasy Island, because, the joke is nothing else is going to open this year. So let's start with that. I honestly don't think that the Oscars are going to be affected very much at all. And there's two reasons why I don't feel like the Oscars are going to be, the next Oscars are going to be affected very much. Reason number one, I do believe, don't take my word for it, I'm no scientist, this is just me as an average citizen just giving an opinion, okay? So just be clear about that. I don't see the situation we're being in right now being terribly long-lasting, right? So I believe in a matter of months, we're going to be back to operating as close to normal as possible. Again, don't take my word for that. I am no scientist. I'm not a member of the World Health Organization. That's just me saying what my thought is. So that's number one. Number two is this, and maybe more importantly, we are in a window of time right now in the calendar year where Oscar films don't generally come out, right? It's not normal, it's not unheard of, and it's not impossible, but it is not, say, normal standard operating procedure for the movies that do come out this time of year, March, April, May, June, July. This isn't generally the window of time that the majority of the Oscar contending movies usually come out. The Oscar contending movies tend to like to come out closer to the end of the year, where Oscar buzz can help their box office returns and help make them more money. So it just kind of makes sense for them to open up later in the year. So my kind of feeling on how can the next Oscars actually be affected, my thought is probably not much. Not much. Because, let's face it, Bloodshot was not going to be an Oscar contender. Sonic the Hedgehog is not going to be an Oscar contender. And a lot of the movies coming out in the next few months were not really going to be Oscar contenders anyway. I've gone from not caring about Black Widow to now being pretty excited about Black Widow because the recent trailers. So whenever it does come out, I'm excited to see it. But let's be honest here. It's not at least from our point of view right now, at this period of time, it's not like Black Widow was going to be an Oscar contender anyway, nor were most of the films coming out in this time window. So personally, I don't think we're going to see the Oscars get affected much by this at all. But maybe there's some big factors here I'm overlooking. What do you guys think about that? Do you think what's going on right now at the movie theater industry is going to hurt or impact heavily what happens at the Oscars next year? Jump down to the comment section below and let me know your thoughts. All right. With that down, let's move on to our third main topic today. And our third main topic today gets submitted to us by our friend Geeky Gator. And Geeky Gator writes, "Hey John and gang, the new Vin Diesel film, Bloodshot, which we were just talking about, which came out just last weekend and made a total of 22 million worldwide, is now being released on digital and VOD on March 24th. That's this coming Tuesday. Do you think this means movies like Bloodshot that barely got any theatrical release won't get one after the virus?" All right, thanks a lot for sending that in, man. And first of all, yeah, I don't think a movie like Bloodshot, and there are others like it, there may be a few exceptions. I don't think a movie like Bloodshot is going to get a re-release in theaters for a couple of reasons. One, a lot of people didn't even know that movie was coming out. Two, not many people were looking forward to it. Three, the reviews for it have not been kind. Four, the word of mouth wasn't great before, the bottom fell out and everything like that. All those things combined lead me to believe that when the studio sits back and looks at the expense of mounting another marketing campaign to announce to the world a re-release in theaters once the theaters are open again, it just seems to me if you're the studio, you don't look at that as being a value proposition. You probably don't look at that as being something that's worth the money. You're probably not thinking that if we put it back in theater, we will make more money than we will have to spend by putting it back in theater. That's probably not the case. So I don't see that happening. Now, what a lot of other people are also asking is this going to become the new norm of all these movies just going to streaming? Well, if you listen to the studio that's putting out Bloodshot, the answer is probably no. This is what Tom Rothman, he's the chairman over at Sony Pictures, had to say about releasing Bloodshot onto streaming early. He said this: "Sony Pictures is firmly committed to the theatrical exhibition and we support windowing." That's basically saying, understanding that, look, we know we get all of our money really from the movie theaters. We make the vast majority of our money from our movies playing in movie theaters, and we believe in playing our movies in movie theaters, and we believe in having a window of time between when the movie comes out and when it comes out on streaming. This is a unique and exceedingly rare circumstance where theaters have been required to close nationwide for the greater good, and Bloodshot is abruptly unavailable in any medium. Audiences will now have the chance to own Bloodshot right away and see it at home, where we are all spending more time. We are confident that, like other businesses hit hard by the virus, movie theaters will bounce back strongly, and we will be there to support them. Again, that's coming from Tom Rothman. So it seems like he's saying what a number of us have been saying all along. These are crazy, unique circumstances. These are crazy, unique circumstances. And the movie theaters, as I mentioned the other day, at least from the people that I've talked to, don't have any objection, seemingly, to these studios that have spent all this money on the marketing of their films. They need to get out in front of people, and they're choosing to go this route. It seems they have no objection to it. Everybody understands this is a very weird, unique time. Everybody understands this is not the norm. Everybody knows that this isn't the way things are now always going to be, because we are in, as Tom Rothman said, extremely rare and extremely unique circumstances. And their intention is, as soon as we can get past all this, they want to get not Bloodshot, but their other films into theaters where they will make the vast lion's share of their money before making what other money they can on streaming and VOD. So this seems like it makes sense, but no, bottom line here is I just don't see a way or a world in which Sony, understanding that the response to Bloodshot wasn't all that great, I don't see a world in which Sony then remounts a whole new marketing campaign, sinks another $20 million into marketing to make the audience aware that, hey guys, on July 8th, Bloodshot returns to theaters. I just don't see them doing it. Maybe I'm wrong, and maybe they will. Question is, what do you guys think? they should do with Bloodshot. Do you think that when the theaters are open back again, they should put it back into theaters? Or do you think they should just cut their losses at this point and move on to the next project? Jump down to the comment section below and let me know your thoughts. All right, guys. With that down and out of the way, let's move on to main topic number 4. And our fourth main topic today gets submitted to us by Brendan Kraft, who writes, "Hello, John and Rob." Well, Rob's not here today, unfortunately. He'll be here tomorrow, though. Keep your eyes open for Rob tomorrow. So it looks like not everything is shutting down, since Tom Cruise and team are currently filming Mission Impossible 7 in England. Why do you think they can film when other movies can't right now? Is everyone else being too cautious, or is Cruise just being reckless? Thanks. All right. So thanks a lot for sending that in, Brendan. And I'm glad you did, because there was a little bit of a misunderstanding going around online yesterday. Now, there were a bunch of reports yesterday that were claiming that Mission Impossible 7 was indeed up and shooting and they were up and filming. That is actually not the case. They're not filming right now. The studio made that clear. They're not filming. However, they are working on the movie. As of right now, they are indeed working on the movie. They're doing what they are calling tech run-throughs and rehearsals. And this one comes to us from the folks over at Digital Spy here. So you can see that, I believe that is Tom Cruise on the motorcycle, by the way. So while they don't have cameras up and running, Tom Cruise and his team are yet nonetheless still putting in work on this movie, doing a bunch of the background work, pre-production work, all that kind of stuff. They're in the process of making a movie, even though they are not actually shooting the movie as we speak. The question is everybody else being overly cautious, or is Tom Cruise and his team being reckless by continuing to work on the film? I would personally suggest the answer is probably somewhere in between. I think it's probably somewhere in between. Because look, when we see pictures like this and we see that they are doing some work and trying to prep so that when they are able to get up and filming again, they're ready to go and they have as many pieces in place as they can to try to at least make some progress even while they're not shooting. While we see pictures like this, what we don't know is how many people are there working with them. You know, if it's one or two other stunt coordinators that he has spent all his time with, and they don't bring in a group of 20 and 30 people, and they're maintaining social distancing, and they're not getting, tons of people on set. They're not bringing in a 15-person crafty team. They're not bringing in a lighting team. They don't have a bunch of PAs on set. If the work that they're doing is mostly isolated, and I don't know what the situation is in the area where they're doing this work. Maybe it's very light. Maybe they don't have a lot of social restrictions going on right now. Look, all I'm saying is we don't know. We don't know right now. Because if on that set there's 40 other people, well, then they're being reckless. But if it's him and like one stunt coordinator and one assistant helping them out as they're running through things, well, then I don't know. I don't think I want to judge that personally. Would I do it? I don't know. But I don't want to judge him if that's the case. So I think we're trying to come up with answers when we don't even have a well-defined question, So do I, in principle, have any problem with them continuing to try to do behind-the-scenes work on a movie before they can start shooting? Yeah, I'm totally good with that, as long as this is not requiring, bringing groups of people into the same room together. If there's work that can be done on a movie to continue to make process, so when you can start shooting your movie again, you're a little bit further ahead, and you can do all that while maintaining common sense social distancing, then I've got no problem with it at all. And from what I'm seeing in this picture, nothing there tends to make me think otherwise at this point. But I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Question is, guys, how do you feel about this? What do you think about them still doing some work? And by the way, I'm almost positive Mission Impossible 7 is not the only film to still be working on behind-the-scenes stuff, pre-production, doing all the stuff that they can do to try to get a little bit ahead for when they can actually start rolling cameras again. But what are your thoughts on this? Jump down into the comment section below and let me know your thoughts. All right, guys. With all that down and out of the way, we've come to a new segment that we've been doing this week since so many of us are stuck at home right now. Rob and I have been coming up with recommendations, movies that maybe you've heard of, maybe you are aware of, but probably a lot of you haven't seen yet. And we've been trying to make some recommendations for you guys to do that. Rob has been, recommending movies like Age of Adeline, like Thief, like Stone Cold. I've been recommending films like Hero, Stardust, and A Good Old-Fashioned Orgy. Rob's not here today to give his recommendation, but I am here to give mine, ladies and gentlemen. I am here to give you my recommendation. And I'll tell you what, this movie that I'm about to recommend is one that I absolutely love, but I really struggled with whether or not to recommend it because it's one of these movies that not everybody's going to like, but I believe is completely brilliant and completely hilarious. Completely brilliant and completely hilarious. Now, some of you might have heard me reference this movie once or twice. I'm not sure, but I'm sure probably a lot of you guys haven't heard about this. It's got Terry Garr, Jeffrey Jones, John Lovitz. You've got Monty Python's Eric Idle, the pinup girl of the era, Kathy Ireland. It is hilarious. It is wacky. It is ridiculous. It is all these things and more. And I struggle with whether to recommend this, but I love it too much to not. So I'm going to go out on a limb. I'm going to make my recommendations for things you should watch at home. This show, I'm recommending Mom and Dad Save the World, damn it. And I don't care what anybody else thinks about it. I am recommending Mom and Dad Save the World. So the basic gist of it is this. You've got two of the most bland, boring, stereotypical parents in Terry Garr and Jeffrey Jones. And little do they know, or anybody else in the world, that far off on a distant planet called Spengel, I think it's called, you have an evil empire that's run by an evil emperor named Emperor Todd, played by John Lovitz, in what I would contend is the quintessential John Lovitz role ever and of all time, forever and ever. Amen. Now, John Lovitz and Emperor Todd have been spying on Earth, and particularly on Terry Garr's character. He's fallen in love with Marge. He's fallen in love with her from a distance. So he, comes up this, he kidnaps her, brings her to his world. He's going to blow up the Earth, all this kind of stuff. And the only hope for the world are Mom and Dad to save the world. Now, I got introduced to this film years ago, when me and a bunch of buddies of mine were living in a house together. And one of us brought this movie home, and we watched it. And the first time we watched it, we thought, this is so stupid. It is so stupid. And by the way, Spengel is a planet filled with idiots. And we watched it and we're like, this is so dumb. But for whatever reason, we decided the next day as we're hanging out at the house, let's pop it in again. And we popped it in again. And then we popped it in again. And then we watched it again. And there's just something about the lunacy and the ridiculousness of this movie that starts to tune itself to your brain. And it's just now become one of my most beloved, maybe guilty pleasure, whatever movies ever. And when friends of mine, like old friends of mine in Canada, because this movie's almost 30 years old. I think it's like 28 years old now. When friends of mine up in Canada, we will get together, we will still drop lines from Mom and Dad Save the World. Yo, welcome. That we will still drop lines from Mom and Dad Save the World. Again, it is not going to be for everybody. It is a little bit of an acquired taste. But if your brain can tune into what it is they're doing in this movie, I absolutely had a ridiculously good time. I had a ridiculously good time watching it. So, yes, guys, give it a shot. I cannot guarantee that you're going to like this movie. I cannot guarantee it. All I know is that it is a beloved movie to me, and I hope you guys will give it a shot, and hopefully you'll enjoy it as well. So my recommendation today, although a little bit of a controversial one, is going to be Mom and Dad Save the World. Check it out. And then please, if you do check it out, let me know what you thought, even if you hated it. Even if you hated it, let me know. And if you loved it or found the humor in it, please let me know that too. But John Lovitz was just, I love him in it. It's my favorite thing I've ever seen him in, and my favorite performance of his ever. So I don't know. Go check it out and let me know what you guys think. Okay, guys. With all that down and out of the way, we're now going to move on and start taking your live questions. Now, just before we do, I'll let you know there are two different ways you can send in live questions. The best way and the most preferred way is you can see the tip link in the top line of the video description below. Go ahead and use that to send your question. Or if you'd like, you can just use the super chat feature on YouTube. Now, before we get to the live questions though, as we do every day, I'm going to take a short 4-minute break here, give myself a chance to rest the vocal cords, stretch my legs, go refill my drink, give you a chance to run and use the bathroom. So hang tight with us, guys. Don't go anywhere. I will be right back. everybody, and we are back. Thank you so much for your patience and indulgence as I took a little bit of a break there. So now, let's not waste any time, and let's dive right into it and start getting up on your live question. We're going to start things off here with Aviator, who wrote, I haven't submitted a live in a good while. It's good to have you here, Aviator. Been busy working during this pandemic. Hopefully, my employer will take the necessary steps to do what they have to in the near future. Question: do you think Cats has a butthole cut? Hashtag release the butthole cut. I don't know if you guys have seen this. So, first of all, a little bit of background. You know, Chris Carr, one of her big objections to Cats was the buttholes. These cats don't have buttholes. And she was all upset about that. Well, apparently, now I didn't research this in depth. I just saw the headlines. Apparently, they actually took steps in visual effects to add buttholes to the cats and then later decide to pull them, to not do it, to not have them in there. And now there are fans demanding the release the butthole cut. So, no, I just thought it was one of the strangest things I ever heard. I immediately forwarded it on to Chris, this story when I read this. But no, I do not believe there will be any serious demand for the butthole cut. But, oh my God, it's very well, it just could be a big gag. I'm just saying, I didn't research it in depth. I just saw, like some headlines saying, no, really, visual effects kind of did a redesign of it where, you know, in certain shots, you'd see that they, like every other creature, has buttholes, but then they decided to pull it out. Whether it's true or not, how much validity there is to it, I'm not really sure. I just thought it was one of the funniest things that I read this week. All right, Calvin Bowes writes, Superman at the beginning is killed too. Yes, Superman has killed, both in the comics and in other iterations. Superman absolutely has. Drummer0626 writes, I say Marvel can do Cox's Daredevil the same way they'll do Deadpool, be all family friendly on team up movies, then be Netflix Daredevil in his own movie or show. Again, I think the bigger question is, I don't think philosophically they're going to have Cox's Daredevil. It's not a matter that they can't figure. It's not like Deadpool, right? Where Deadpool is so over the top rated R. You could do Daredevil PG-13 easy. There's really not much in Daredevil, the Netflix show, that pushes you into R-rated territory. There's not much at all. It would take very, very minor tweaks to make Deadpool PG-13. Daredevil. Deadpool is a completely different beast. Deadpool, you have to fundamentally change everything about the character. But again, I don't think the issue, Drummer Zero, is that they don't know how to bring Charlie Cox. The problem is, I don't think they can bring Charlie Cox into it at all. And you know what? That reminds me. Before I continue with the live questions, there's something I forgot to do at the top of the show. What we've been doing, one of the things we've been doing this week, for those of you who don't know, is we have been starting off the show, and I forgot to do this off the top of the show. This is what happens when I'm in the studio all by myself. But I forgot to bring up yesterday's top comments. We've been doing that this week where I go through all the comments of yesterday's show, and I just decided to bring up and highlight some of the comments from yesterday's show. So let me do that right now quickly. One of the comments that somebody left on yesterday's show was from Trinidad the Island Man, who writes, John forgot the third most likely possibility. Kevin Smith was high after smoking a fat one and was just dream speaking. So what that is in reference to is we talked on yesterday's show about Kevin Smith saying that he read news that Charlie Cox, speaking of this Daredevil thing, was going to be in the new Spider-Man movie. And I said, well, there's two options here. Either one, he's referring to some old rumor from ages ago, which by the way, apparently that's what it was. It was like some report that came out on the most unreliable website in the world, WeGotThisCovered.com, like 6 months ago. I said the option two is maybe he knows something we don't know. But then he, of course, turned out the Island Man is saying maybe the third option, he was just smoking a fat one and he was totally high. That's a good option. Ethan Dinney writes, although it's cult following fans, I still feel as if Scott Pilgrim is a very underrated film. I agree. Being my favorite film of all time, I believe that the film was ahead of its time as it bombed. Yeah, that was a movie that deserved to do way better than it did. Scott Pilgrim vs. the World is wonderful. I'm a little biased because it takes place in Toronto, so it's a Canadian movie in many ways, and I just adore that movie. And you're right, even though everybody knows of it, I agree with you. I think it's a little bit underrated. All right, the next comment from yesterday's show was Ryan McLeod, who writes, You'll never see the Marvel TV era characters in the MCU. Not only does Feige want to distance the MCU from that bygone era, which he had no creative control over, but it raises questions of casting. Mahershala Ali can't be Cottonmouth in Luke Cage and then be Blade in the MCU if the TV era is brought into continuity. You raised two good points there, Ryan. Number one, you remember, Kevin Feige had no control and no say over what happened in the Netflix series. So does he want to have to integrate all that into his movies? That's why you never saw any reference to the Netflix shows in the MCU movies, but you did see the Netflix shows reference the movies. So that's why it was always a one-way street. The Mahershala Ali thing is an interesting one, but I don't think a deal breaker. I think your first point is more well taken. Kevin Feige has no interest in bringing that Netflix stuff into his universe. I think that's the more important point. But if he did, if Kevin Feige really wanted to bring those Netflix characters as they were in Netflix into the MCU, I don't think that a casting technicality is going to stop him. I don't think, hey, we have this great idea to bring over Charlie Cox's Daredevil and to bring in Luke Cage and to bring in Jessica Jones and bring in Iron Fist and do all this stuff, right? If you have this great idea, it's going to help shape the MCU. I don't think he's going to go, oh, wait, we can't. Mahershala Ali was Cottonmouth, and now we've got him as Blade, so we can't do it. I think it's something that you'd rather not do, but I don't know that you let something like that stop a big, grand cinematic universe plan you have just because you happen to use an actor once. I mean, again, it's not ideal. It's not something you should normally do. I just don't think it's something that becomes a deal breaker to them. And that's just me. All right. Last highlight comment from yesterday was Vinnie Mall, who writes, "Hey, John, I honestly didn't know if you read the comments or not. Oh, I do, or not. But now that I know you do, a few shows back, you talked about how movies impact us as a distraction and form of escapism of the real world. Thank you for being that for me with your crew and this show every day. Working in healthcare in Florida has been rough to say the least. So thank you. Much love. And P.S. Charles Oliveira is a legit contender." Listen, he is a legit contender. Actually, you know what? First of all, thank you for working in the healthcare field because now more than ever, we really appreciate what you and your colleagues do. So thank you so much for that. And this has got to be a really rough time. Otherwise, yeah, Oliveira is very legit. He's legit. Is he a title contender? I don't know if he is. Like in his fight against Lee, he was getting beat up. He was getting beat. I mean, he was losing that fight until he was able to pull off. He's a great submission artist. He pulled off that guillotine. Fabulous. It was fabulous. But can he get into a ring with like the champion level contenders and do that? I'm not sure, but I know I'm very entertained by his fights. Anyway, guys, that is your top comments from yesterday's show. Tomorrow, I won't forget to do these off the top. So if you're watching this show after the fact, make sure you jump into the comments section, leave a comment, and maybe you'll see your comment featured on top comments on tomorrow's show. Okay, let's get back now to the live questions here. Okay, Jaron Morris writes, super duper duper sorry, John, and my apology. Oh, there was no apology necessary, Jaron. Listen, I know it was unintentional, so it's all good. It's all good. No worries about it. Jaron Morris also writes, her name was Jessica I, the girl, Oh, that's right. The girl, she took her head off that Valentina Shevchenko nearly killed with the head kick. Please make Rob watch that fight. We were talking about that yesterday. Somebody brought up Valentina Shevchenko. She is a demon. I swear to God, she is a demon from the pit of hell. I'm not talking about her character. I'm just talking about how scary she is. Now, I said this on yesterday's show. I'll say it again here. Amanda Nunes is the undisputed queen of all female MMA right now. There's no doubting it. That said, I still think Valentina is the scariest woman in MMA. And yeah, that fight against Jessica I thought she killed that girl. I swear to God, I thought she killed that girl. When she landed that head kick, and the way I just went, I think she killed that girl. Like, I really did. She's a bad woman. Valentina, she is a bad, bad woman. All right. Russell Amador writes, Let's see here. Hey, John, 2 points to address real quick. Number one, Bloodshot set to hit digital streaming on March 24th. Yes. 2020, which is not a bad move for Sony. Two, have you heard about the Release the Butthole fan cut cry for the Cats movie? What's this all about? Well, we already talked about both of these, as a matter of fact. We already talked about the butthole cut. Again, I wish Chris Carr was in the room with me when I first read that, because I would have just loved to have. I think her reaction would have been worth $1 million. I would have loved to have seen that. Is this a good move for Sony in these weird circumstances? Yes. Because again, this movie is not going to make much more money in the theaters anyway. It's not getting a really good rep. The theaters are closed, so you can't play them anyway. So it's probably not a bad move. It's probably not a bad move. Again, as Tom Rothman of Sony said, under these very rare and very unique circumstances, it's not a bad move. Jared's Reviews writes, these are my top 10 all-time favorite movies. Number 10, No Country for Old Men is fabulous. Number 9, Inglourious Basterds, fabulous. Number 8, American Beauty, fabulous. Number 7, All the President's Men. I don't think I've seen anybody else mention that in their top 10. That's a great movie. Number 6, Casablanca. Number 5, Mystic River, Clint Eastwood at his best. I adore that movie. Adore that movie. Number 4, Alien. Number 3, The Dark Knight. Number 2, Castaway. Number 1, The Warriors. A couple friends of mine were supposed to do a remake of Warriors. I literally had a couple of friends of mine in my house. This is years ago. And they were literally on the phone with the studio talking about trying to put together a Warriors remake. Never actually came to be or anything like that. And of course, I've been talking a lot about Castaway. Love that movie. Thanks for sharing that list, Jared. I love that you got All the President's Men on there. All right. An anonymous viewer writes, longtime viewer, first time writing in. Thanks so much for writing in. I want to throw out a movie trilogy recommendation. Rurouni Kenshin. It's about a I'm losing all my pronunciations here. Era assassin leaves his life behind to protect the common man. In my opinion, it's the best animated adaptation to live action. I have never even heard of this. Hold on a second. First of all, I don't even know I'm going to be able to get this, but I know I won't be able to remember how to spell it. Let me see if I can look this up real quick, because that sounds fascinating to me. All right, I'm looking it up on IMDb. I'm not getting anything. So I will do a little bit more of a deep dive search for that a little bit later, Anonymous. But thank you for the tip. And there are probably some of you guys watching at home right now seeing that recommendation going, oh, hell yeah, I know that one. So anyway, thank you for the recommendation on that. Canada Rocks writes, another streaming recommendation available on Google Play, Radius, a 2017 film. It's a Canadian sci-fi horror movie. Well, you got my interest already. About a man that wakes up with amnesia and then finds out that anybody who gets within a certain distance of him instantly dies. It has a 92% on Rotten Tomatoes. Okay, let me look this one up, because that also sounds awesome. Radius. Okay, let's see this. 2017. It was directed by Steve Leonard and Caroline Labrèche. I'm assuming this is a French film. This looks awesome. I'm kind of looking this up right now. I'll bring this up so you guys can see it, and you can go find it and look it up on IMDb if you wish. But that sounds pretty cool. So a man wakes up with no memory of who he is and finds that everyone who comes within a certain distance of him suddenly dies. Okay, first of all, I'm a little bit of a sucker for these. Somebody wakes up with amnesia. You know, whether it's a born identity or something else. I get a little bit of a kick of somebody wakes up with amnesia, because there's a lot you can do with that premise. So that sounds really interesting. Thank you for putting that on my radar, Canada Rocks. All right. Darklock writes, in the event no one covered this yesterday, rumor of Daredevil and Spider-Man 3 or Doctor Strange 2 was posted by We Got This Covered 9 months ago. Yeah, which is exactly what I said, because I did a quick search. When Kevin Smith said he read it, I did a quick search for like the past week. Because if he's just mentioning it now, I thought, okay, who's talking about this? And one of the options I said, now maybe he's referring to something that's really old. And sure enough, it was something that came up on, sure enough, We Got This Covered. Again, guys, never, ever, 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 ever believe anything you read on We Got This Covered. Unless it's something that other people reported first. Then you can. And by the way, We Got This Covered can actually be a really good website. I just don't believe them when it comes to breaking stories, because there was that study done on how many of the stories they break actually turn out to be real, and it was around 2%. Anyway, just throwing that out again. Thanks for the update on that, Darklock. All right, Johnny5 writes, with all these movies moving dates, I'm wondering, Are they going to make new trailers for Black Widow or the others, or try to rehype us with the same ones when we get close to their new dates? Thanks, and you and everyone else stay safe in these dark days. That's a great question, Johnny. That is a great question. My first thought is this. If they don't move the date too far, I think they just keep the same trailers. If they don't move the date very far. If they move the date, like say 4 months, then I think you've got to make new trailers. Because, look, let's say they just move it off May. Let's say they open it in late July. I'm not saying they're going to open it in late July. I'm just saying, let's say they open it in late July. At that point, I think you're safe to maintain the same ads that you've got, the same trailers that you have, and I think we'll all be fine with that. But if you start moving it to, say, September, October, November, December, 2021, stuff like that, at that point, you can't just recycle the same trailers. You got to put out new trailers that catch our attention again. Because you're going to want to get into the news cycle again. You want to get into the Twitter discussion. And if it's just the same trailers 6 months later, that could be problematic. So I think that's a fabulous question, Johnny. So yeah, I think if it comes out soon, same trailers. If they pushes off a while, you might have to get a new set of trailers out there. All right. Vicarious writes, hey, John, I was really happy to hear your movie suggestion yesterday, Hero, because I love that movie a lot. Have you seen Fearless? Yes, I have. Or Shaolin, 2011. Both are great, but very underrated martial arts. Wait a second, which one is Shaolin? One of my all-time favorite martial arts films, one of my all-time favorite kung fu movies is Shaolin Soccer, by the way, which is very different. But also Shaolin versus Llama is my all-time, for those of you who've ever seen it, Shaolin versus Llama is my all-time favorite kung fu movie. You may beat me with this stick for my insolence. All right. So it's funny, when I type in Shaolin, the very first thing that comes up is Shaolin Soccer by Stephen Chow that came out in 2001. If you haven't seen it, go see it. It is both hilarious and really freaking exciting to watch. Let's see. Shaolin, directed by Benny Chan, and let's see, where's the synopsis here? Okay. After ambushing and killing his rival, losing everything in the process, dispirited warlord Hao Ji returns to Shaolin Monastery seeking salvation. That sounds pretty cool. I'm down. Why not? I'm always up for a good Shaolin movie. So thank you for putting that on my radar. And guys, if you haven't seen or heard of Shaolin Soccer, it's made by the same guy who made Kung Fu Hustle. And a lot of people love Kung Fu Hustle. And for good reason. It's really good. I think Shaolin Soccer is his better film. So go watch Shaolin Soccer. And thanks for that recommendation, dude. I love that one, Christopher. All right. Let's see. Where are we at? Oh, sorry. That was Vicarious. Christopher writes, loved your hero recommendation yesterday. You know what movie is also underrated? Iron Monkey. It is. I like Iron Monkey. Have you ever seen it? Yes. It was re-released in theaters years ago with Quentin Tarantino producing. Fantastic film with incredible action. Yeah. See, Tarantino, if I'm not mistaken, wasn't actually a producer on the film. But if I remember it correctly, and I may not be remembering it correctly, because this is going back ages, I think he was kind of responsible for bringing it into North American theaters, I believe, and thus he got a producer's credit. I think that's how it was. Again, I might not be remembering it correctly, but I think that's how I remember. Yeah, I remember Iron Monkey. You kidding me? I thought it was great. Okay, anyway. Next up, James Germain writes, hey, John, don't know if you finally got to see the trailer for Honey Boy. Well, I saw the movie Honey Boy, but I was wondering if you saw the actual movie. Yes. Just want to know your thoughts on it. Keep it filthy, but also stay healthy. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. Actually, I've got it downstairs. I got an award screener for it downstairs. I loved it. This was 2019 was a great year for Shia LaBeouf, because not only did you have Honey Boy, you had Peanut Butter Falcon. And I would contend there are certain years where Shia absolutely would have gotten a nomination for either one or both. This was a particularly packed year, and he wouldn't have been nominated in every year, but I think there are some years that he could have gotten a nomination for either one of those. He was great. Now, one of the reasons you don't hear me talking as much about Honey Boy, even though I thought it was great, I was floored by Peanut Butter Falcon. I was floored with that movie. There's a humanity. Well, actually, there's a real humanity to both, but there is a humanity to Peanut Butter Falcon that it didn't compromise its humor for its humanity. And it didn't compromise its drama for its humor. You know what I mean? Like, there were no compromises in the film. And Shia was great. The whole cast was wonderful. Obviously, out of an old school wrestling fan, I got a big kick out of seeing Jake the Snake Roberts in there. But yeah, I think one of the reasons you hear some people, including me, maybe talking more about, or not talking as much about Honey Boy, is because I was just also so floored by Peanut Butter Falcon. And when I'm talking Shia, I usually go to that one. But yeah, I really did enjoy Honey Boy. It was great. All right, AD writes, so I've been watching your show for years. Oh, thank you so much. At first, it was for the movies, but now I think it's because of how well you convey your point when answering questions. I would love to see John Campea's Anatomy of an Answer. Well, thank you so much for that. I don't know that I have an anatomy or a philosophy for my answers. I mean, I try to do a couple things. Number one, when I answer a question, I try to make sure that everybody understands the context of the question, because not everybody knows what somebody's talking about, right? So I always try to start an answer by setting up a context. For instance, when somebody says, I think everybody's forgetting that maybe Kevin Smith was talking about he was just being high. So what I try to do is I start an answer by setting the context first. And I say, okay, so for those of you who missed it, yesterday's show, blah, 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 we talked about this, we talked about this. I believe setting the context for an answer goes a long way in helping everybody come along as well. I also try to not just say what I think, I try to explain why I think what I think, right? And I think that's important because ultimately, I try to answer questions. Too many people try to answer questions in a way that is designed to try to convince you to agree with their point of view. And that's normal. That's natural. I think that's a natural thing. And I think I do that to a degree as well. I think I do. However, being cognizant of this, my job, you guys have heard me say this before, my job as a film pundit is not to say things that you agree with. My job as a film pundit is not to try to convince you to agree with me. So it's not my job to say things you already agree with, and it's not my job to try to get you to agree with me. So I try to answer questions in such a way that makes clear what my opinion is, but hopefully in such a way that it helps you sharpen what your own opinion is, whether it's the same as mine or the opposite of mine. Because I know that's one of the reasons why Roger Ebert was my all-time favorite film critic. I did not often agree with Roger Ebert's film assessments. I at least half the time I disagreed with him. I at least half the time had a different point of view than he did on certain movies. But the reason Roger Ebert was my favorite film critic was because he would express his position and his point of view in such a way that helped me in my own mind make clear why I disagreed with him. And he was an excellent communicator. He was a fabulous communicator. And like I said, he would express his opinion in such a way that even if I disagreed with him, the way he would express his opinion and explained his opinion and what the context of his opinion was, helped me better understand my own thoughts about why I disagreed with him, right? And that's why I valued him so much as a film critic and as a communicator. And I'm not saying I do a great job at that, but at least that's what I try to do. I try to explain my opinions on things in such a way that isn't trying to convince you to agree with me, but hopefully if you disagree with me expressing my point of view helps you sharpen and more clarify why you disagree with me. Because being film fans is not about needing to agree with everybody. Being a film fan is not about having to agree with each other. Being co-members of a film fan community and being film fans together isn't about us having to agree with each other. Robert and me have vastly different opinions on the new Star Trek, right? But I love Tarkin Star Trek with Rob. Even though we have a universe of different, we agree primarily on the earlier Star Trek stuff, but on all the new Star Trek stuff, Robert and I have completely opposite points of view. And that's okay. We still love talking about Star Trek together, even though we have completely different points of view. And I'll tell you what, There are times that Rob and I are talking about Star Trek off camera. Well, he'll say something and it makes me go, huh, this is an interesting point of view. And there have been times that he's been rallying on something and I offer a different point of view and he's gone, huh, okay, that's an interesting way. Like, we have completely opposite points of view, but we still love being film fans together. And I think that's a good analogy for all of us in the film fan community, but that's just me. But anyway, thank you for the kind words, man. I really appreciate that very much. Okay, let's see here. Next one up is Draco Eris, who writes, I highly recommend Beastars. I've heard some people talking about this recently. It's on Netflix. It's like Zootopia, but for a mature audience. I love how emotionally grounded it is. It's become one of my favorite anime shows. You know what? I actually have heard some people talking about this recently, and I've got to say I'm intrigued. So I think I may check this out because the whole premise of it, Draco, sounds absolutely fascinating to me. So yeah, I think at some point I'm going to check this one out because, and by the way, I looked at some quick stills. I didn't get a chance to look at footage of it yet, but I looked at some stills and I thought, ooh, I like that style. So I'm going to have to check that out. Thank you for adding your voice to the recommendations, Draco. I really appreciate it. I'm looking forward to checking it out. All right. We got this covered, writes, breaking news. Disney just announced that John Campea will release his breakdancing video on Disney+. Well, if it's coming from We Got This Covered, you can take it to the bank. It's got to be true. All right. Thanks for sending that in. My breakdancing videos. Never gonna see them. Never gonna see him. Anyway, Mr. Hoover writes, hey, John, I know I already asked about Turn Washington Spies and Hell on Wheels yesterday, but I never got the chance to see if Rob had checked out the shows. In a time of being grateful, I'm blessed to live in a country made by past soldiers and engineers. I'm glad you threw in engineers there. I think engineers built this country. Now, I'm a little biased because my dad is also an engineer. And my brother is an engineer. I think that's probably why my brother is my parents' favorite and I'm not. At any rate, my brother is an engineer. My grandfather was in the business, so I have a huge appreciation and admiration for engineers. Now, unfortunately, Rob is not here to address that question. And we already did talk about this, but I'm glad you brought up engineers, Mr. Hoover. I'm glad you did that. All right. KW Garrett 83 writes, I'm guessing you've answered this before, but how do you like The Expanse? I'm halfway through season 4. I think the show was great through season 3 finale, but season 4 is disappointing so far. The show seems to have lost its narrative purpose. I'll tell you what, first of all, I am loving The Expanse. The Expanse is one of those shows, and I've got a couple. Doom Patrol, Harley Quinn, and The Expanse. There's a couple of examples of shows that I really wasn't going to check out, but because of how many of you guys kept on me saying, John, you got to watch these. That's one of the shows I got into, and I'm so grateful that I did. I love The Expanse. I will say this. I enjoyed season 4, but I do feel like the show lost a step. And this whole thing about, I got to get the clue. And what it is, what the underlying thing is. And like when they're all trapped underground, I'm not going to try not to give too much away. I mean, I still enjoyed it. I liked it. And I really love now the former president in the show. But I agree. I feel like it lost a step. I hope they're able to recapture that again once they get into season 5. And I am looking forward to season 5. And again, let me restate. I'm not saying I disliked season 4. I enjoyed it, but not as much as I enjoyed seasons 1 through 3. So let's see what happens when they go into 5. So I'm with you on KW. You're not alone on that. All right. Gabe Escure writes, thoughts on Bong Joon-ho wanting to make the anti-musical musical, meaning in his words, a musical that won't make him feel embarrassed and blush. I have not heard him say that. That's intriguing. Listen, I'm not going to say I am a big fan of musicals. But there are a bunch of musicals that I am a big fan of. I am not generally a big fan of musicals, but there are musicals I am a big fan of. So whether you're talking about things like, I was just talking about this movie the other day, actually, Moulin Rouge. Moulin Rouge is one of my top 20 all-time favorite films. One of my all-time top 20 favorite movies of all time. I loved the recent Greatest Showman. I love that. So I am not a big musical fan, but there are musicals I am a big fan of. But so that comment is interesting. I got to admit, I have not seen him say that. I have not seen that comment. So I'm going to have to go and look into that, Gabe. Thanks for putting that on my radar. All right. Jetfire97 writes, times have changed. Before COVID-19, someone sneezes, another says, bless you. During COVID-19, someone sneezes, another says, stay away from me, and runs. It's true. It's true. And understandable to a point. Although I do want to point out to people that if you go and look up the symptoms for COVID-19, sneezing is not listed as one of them. I'm just pointing, I'm not saying that means anything. I'm just saying I found it interesting because, a couple of days ago, I had a bit of a sneezing fit. And I'm like, oh no. And I runched on it. I looked up symptoms for COVID-19. I'm like, oh, and it didn't list sneezing as one of them. And I'm like, okay. And I read all the other symptoms. I'm like, okay, fever, no, blah, blah. I don't have anything else. Okay, fine. I'm fine. Which is good to see. But yeah, sneezing, just everybody keep in mind, if you happen to be around somebody, and hopefully you're not around a lot of people because you're exercising social distancing. But if you happen to be around somebody and you hear a sneeze, don't freak out. I mean, don't stand in the way of their sneeze spray, but don't freak out, because that is generally, from everything I've read, that is not necessarily one of the symptoms of that. Anyway, thanks for bringing that on. All right, David writes, the one area that hasn't been discussed much with studios going to VOD earlier is, if successful, this could speed up the death of physical media faster than its natural trajectory. Not many people would buy a disc after the film is online months earlier. I mean, that's true too, but you also have to keep in mind they've already been doing that. Remember that the standard operating procedure for the releases of these movies has been, it comes out on streaming first, and is out on streaming for a week or 2 weeks, and then the physical disc can be bought. So yeah, again, this has kind of been the standard operating procedure already. And we talked about this like a year ago, that's kind of been part of the studios and the distributors trying to condition the audience to understand that physical media is going away. So it's already kind of been the norm at any rate. So keep that in mind too. All right. Next up, Anthony Lucalano writes, spending tonight watching the Man with No Name trilogy. Nice. For the first time tomorrow, I'm watching Once Upon a Time in the West and Once Upon a Time in America, also for the first time. And Anthony, that is awesome. I love hearing that so many film fans, because listen, there are tens and tens and tens of thousands of movies to watch, like good ones to watch, right? So there are a lot of film fans. And this is not a negative reflection on their film fandom, but there are a lot of hardcore film fans that haven't watched a lot of the classics because there's so many movies to watch, right? So you can't be blamed for that. You don't have all the time in the world. But one of the things that I love hearing, particularly in this time that we're in right now, I love hearing that some other film fans are saying, you know what? I'm taking this time to watch The Godfather for the first time. I'm taking this time to watch the Man with No Name trilogy, particularly when it's like Westerns. But I love hearing that, Anthony. Good use of your time, sir. I applaud that, and I hope you enjoy them, man. All right. Sam O'Neill writes, currently watching 2011's New Year's Eve with Zac Efron. Man, this is a stacked cast. Absolutely ridiculous how many people are in this. I love a rom-com. You know what? I'm not even sure I know which movie we're talking about. Let me look this up. Hold on a second. New Year's Eve. Let's see. 2011. Oh, okay. So it's kind of that same series as Valentine's Day, that whole thing, right? Yeah, Gary Marshall directed. I know the movie you're talking about. You know what? I skipped this one. But all these movies, Valentine's Day, New Year's Eve, that whole kind of collection of films. But you're not wrong. Listen to the set, because Gary Marshall directed, so everybody's going to be in it. But listen here. Cary Elwes, I always pronounce his name wrong. He is, of course, Wesley in Princess Bride. Robert De Niro, Halle Berry, Zac Efron, Michelle Pfeiffer, Alyssa Milano, Jessica Biel, Seth Meyers, Common. I mean, on and on and on and on the list goes. So I will admit, I don't think I watched this. I don't think I watched it. Now, it was 9 years ago, so maybe I did and I just forgot. But I don't believe I checked this one out. So I didn't see it, but thanks for, that's, you're not wrong, Sam. That cast was stacked. All right. Man Mountain Gherkin writes, This is obviously not a top priority right now. However, I admit feeling angry that this pandemic could jeopardize the Cineworld takeover of Cineplex. Canada, so close to a movie membership. Hey, listen, look, we all understand, right? Like I've said many times in this show, look, I understand there are more important ramifications and more important things and deeper consequences going on as a result of the current crisis than how it affects the movies. But I tell people, but this show is about the movies and entertainment and television shows. So on this show, we are going to talk about these things as they relate to and as they affect the movie and television industry. That's the little box we're talking about. We understand there are more important things. We know that. But there are lots of places where everybody can go and talk about the bigger problems. I agree. Here on this show, we talk about this. So, Man Mountain, listen, just because you voice one of your frustrations, that doesn't mean you're saying it's the most important thing or the most tragic thing. You're still allowed to voice one of the things that frustrates you about this. Like, look, Ann and I had plans for her birthday. She wanted to go to Florida to go watch WrestleMania. And we were going to go. We had one of our viewers very graciously sent me free passes for Universal Studios down there in Florida. We were going to go to Disney World down there. We had this whole thing planned. We had even already booked our flights. And as a result of all this, we had to cancel our plans. And yeah, we're frustrated about that. That doesn't mean we're not cognizant of, John, there are bigger problems in the world than you not getting to go to Florida. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. But yeah, it's still an inconvenience. And you're right. For film fans in Canada who have been looking forward to somebody else taking over Cineplex, which is a movie theater chain that used to be great and completely lost their way. Yeah, it's yet another thing. Just because you mentioned one of the things you're frustrated about doesn't mean you're not aware that there are other things as well. So you're totally allowed to do that. And I totally relate, man. I cannot wait for that movie theater chain to become great again. And I'm looking forward to it, and I hope it happens much sooner rather than later. All right. Cody Carroll writes, all movies here closed except the Tulsa Drive-In. Oh, thanks for bringing it up. You know what? Ann and I are going out of the house tonight. We're going to go to the drive-in tonight. Yeah. I don't know why I hadn't thought of this before, but somebody wrote in a question yesterday that talking about drive, like I think somebody wrote in a question asking, how do you think drive-ins are going to do? And I went, drive-ins? That's a great idea. So yesterday I jumped online and sure enough, a couple of the drive-ins around us are still open and still playing movies. And Ann and I sat down and they said, hey, we're just going to be in our car. Should we go to the drive-in? And we're both like, yeah, we'd love to get out of the house and do something and still maintain our social distancing. What better way than just to be in your car? So tonight, Ann and I, even though these are not two good movies, but tonight, Ann and I, we're loading up a cooler. We're going to bring all of our own food and drinks, throw it into the car, and we're going to drive out to a drive-in tonight, and we are going to go watch Bloodshot and Fantasy Island. And I know some of you right now are going, why do you want to go see those? And I'll tell you what, it's just getting out of the house and going to see a movie. It's not the same thing as going into the theaters, granted, but I think this is a great option right now. You're in your own car, social distancing, you're good, you're getting out of the house, gonna go. I think it's a great option. Now, maybe there's a good reason why going to the drive-in still isn't a good idea. Maybe there isn't. I'm just not thinking about it. But I'm excited for it. Even if it's Bloodshot and Fantasy Island, I'm still excited for it. I'm not actually, you know how I often say to you guys that, I love going to the movies. And I've said this many times on the show. I've said, every day that I wake up on a day that I know I'm going to a movie later that day, I just wake up excited. It's true. Like if I know one night, me and a couple of friends, we're going to go see Invisible Man later tonight, like a few weeks ago. I wake up excited because I love going to the movies. And obviously for the last couple of weeks, that's been something we really haven't been able to do much. And so the fact that even if it's a drive-in, I'm very excited about going into the drive-in. I'm very excited about going to the drive-in tonight. So yeah, there's that. All right. Let's see. Jeremy Shishabu writes, in Spider-Verse, Peter B was battling depression and was suicidal. He kept risking death instead of solving his problems, but Miles gave him a chance. In life, all it takes is a leap of faith. I don't know that Peter Parker in Spider-Verse was suicidal. I don't think that's the case. I don't see anything in there that suggests that. Was he down? Absolutely. Was he maybe wrestling with some depression? I think you can make an argument for that. I didn't see anything there that suggested he was suicidal, right? Taking chances, yeah, but Spider-Man does that. Spider-Man takes chances. That's what Peter Parker does. So I don't know that I saw that, but still, Jeremy, that movie, and this is one of those movies, that I was not excited for. I didn't think it looked all that great. I was not impressed with the visual animation style when the first trailers came out. I really wasn't big on the idea of going more Miles Morales, although it's every bit as much of a Peter Parker movie as Miles, but still. And then I saw it and I was like, wow, that movie is so good. It ended up being my third favorite movie of the year. It was, in my opinion, the best comic book movie of the year. And yes, I include Infinity War in that. I thought Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse was better than Infinity War. My top three favorite movies of the year was A Quiet Place, BlacKkKlansman, and third best movie overall of the year was Spider-Verse. I thought it was amazing, and it really touched on different things. I don't think it was suicidal, but I think you're right, Jeremy. It touched on other things as well, and I really enjoyed it for that. All right, Anthony Lucalano writes, now on to For a Few Dollars More. Again, I'm glad you're doing that, man, and I hope you enjoy it. Anthony also writes, man, the last 12 or so minutes of A Fistful of Dollars are so epic. The score, direction, and cinematography paired with the action unfolding on screen, absolutely awesome. The whole film rocks. It's been a while since I've seen Fistful of Dollars. And so I cannot remember what the last 12, I remember the movie, but I can't remember what the exact last 12 minutes are. But you just did, Anthony. You just reminded me. There's a few movies I need to go back and start watching during this time that a lot of us are stuck at home. I definitely got to do the Lord of the Rings films again because I haven't done that in a couple of years. But I think I need to go back and watch these ones too, Anthony, because now you're getting me all excited again just thinking about them. So good on you, man. Darren Till, I'm sure not the actual MMA fighter, but Darren Till writes, my pick for a movie people should watch is the 2004 classic, The SpongeBob SquarePants Movie. Never thought I'd say this, John, but watching it again as an adult has made me realize that it's actually well written and even more hilarious. Everybody watch it. You know what's funny, man? I am always amazed how popular SpongeBob is with people. I am not, full admission here, I am not a SpongeBob guy. I'm not a SpongeBob guy. I have not watched the SpongeBob stuff. I've watched a few things, not really for me, which is totally cool, but I'm always amazed by how many people absolutely love that stuff. It's made me think sometimes, if so many people love it so much, maybe I should just sit down and watch like an hour, 2 hours of it just to see if I can, figure out why so many other people really, really enjoy this stuff. So maybe I'll have to do that. All right. Ed Minty writes, number one, totally agree on your opinion of Godfather 3. So underrated. Just when I was out, they pull me back in. Even Sopranos quoted it. 2, theatrical version always better. I challenge you with Once Upon a Time in America. I don't remember the differences. Now listen, I did not say that the theatrical version is always better, right? I did not say that. What I said was, my default position is the original theatrical release for just about any film. Because to me, that is what the movie is. You can do anything to a movie after it's been released, but the movie is the movie that got released in theaters. That's usually my default position. But like I said on yesterday's show, like Batman versus Superman, the Ultimate Cut, I do prefer the Ultimate Cut. I don't think it's all that much better than the original theatrical cut, to be honest with you. Some people make it out like it's a totally different film, and it's really not. But I do prefer that one. So that's an example. So no, I've never said it's, but I don't remember the Once Upon a Time in America difference. So I might have to go look that one up. But anyway, nice deep dig on that one, Ed. Well done. All right, Slim Trav writes, quarantine idea, live stream, a watch along of Cats. I don't know. Maybe I should. You know what Ann and I are going to do a little bit later today before we go to the drive-in tonight? Just to let you guys know. We're going to do a little play and chat Ann and I are going to do some live streaming of Ann and I playing Mario Kart. I know that sounds boring, but Ann and I love playing Mario Kart. I'm terrible at it. She's pretty good at it. But we're going to play some Mario Kart and do some live streaming of us playing Mario Kart a little bit later today, just for fun. Why not? If you guys don't have anything to do, why don't you come along and watch along with us? It's going to be some fun. And by the way, Ann is launching her own Twitch. Now, we're going to stream us playing Mario Kart on my YouTube channel right here. But she's launching her own Twitch account. Why? Because Ann's all-time favorite video game, forever and always, has been Animal Crossing. Animal Crossing is her game. She loves that movie. She adores, or that game, I should say. She played it all the time earlier. So she's been waiting desperately for the new one to come out. And the new one's coming out. And so she's decided, you know what? I'm going to create my own Twitch account and just stream me playing Animal Crossing. I'm like, you do that, honey. So she's going to do that as well. But a little bit later today, we're going to be doing some streaming of us playing Mario. We're going to play a little bit of Mario Kart. That was a terrible Mario I just did. Anyway, James Durden writes, hi, I've noticed that when anyone talks about Shawshank Redemption, it's rarely mentioned that it's based on a short story by Stephen King. We mention that all the time. What are you talking about? Even in promoting it, Stephen King is usually all over stuff like this. Maybe not to confuse since it's not horror. I mean, yeah, but also, I believe isn't Green Mile? I believe Green Mile is also... I could be wrong about that, but also Green Mile is a Stephen King, based on a Stephen King thing, if I'm not mistaken, and I might be. But anyway, you're absolutely right, though. Shawshank is, and again, I believe a top three greatest motion pictures of all time. And in my opinion, the biggest mistake the Academy ever made in presenting Best Picture. Because like I said, Shawshank Redemption is a top 3 greatest film of all time, in my opinion. Most lists will put it in the top 20 or 30 of the greatest movies of all time. And it lost Best Picture to Forrest Gump. And Forrest Gump is great. Make no mistake, Forrest Gump is great. But Shawshank Redemption is one of the greatest cinematic achievements ever in the history of film. It should have won Best Picture, but hey, hindsight. Okay, anyway, China should have gone for the head. Just sends in a tip just to be supportive. Thank you so much for that, man. I appreciate that. Nicholas Priera writes, it's not Cavill's fault, but his Superman lacked personality. Oh, I disagree. Snyder focused on the problems the hero may face more than who he is and what he wants. We can describe the personality of Steve Rogers, Diana Prince, or Wade Wilson from their first film, but who is Cavill's Kal-El? A speechless Jesus, and Clark Kent is evil. Oh, I disagree. I massively disagree. And listen, all film is subjective. That's what you watched. That's how you experienced. That's how it impacted you. I totally respect that. Your opinion is no more and no less valid than mine. But I got to say, since you asked me, I completely disagree. I believe, listen, when you're making a film, you got to make a decision about how much time you spend on what things and what things are important to the overall story as opposed to the other. I believe we got many glimpses of what Clark's personality was before understanding who he was as an alien, as a superpowered being, as who and what he was. And I think we did get a lot of glimpses of that. We also got to understand that as we get into the main part of the movie, particularly if we're talking about Man of Steel, the most underrated comic book film of all time, the death of his Earth father impacted him greatly. So now you've got a guy who has realized he's an alien being. His father just passed. There's so many things about himself he does not understand. And he goes on this lifelong quest around the world trying to figure some things out. And I remember I asked a friend of mine once, what would that person act like? What would that person be like? You know, we saw glimpses of him prior to the death of Pa Kent. But once that happened, compounding what he was and understanding that his father died to save and protect his secret. You know, he didn't die to save Clark's life. Clark wasn't going to die in a tornado. He died to protect his secret because he knew his son wasn't yet ready for that. So now he's dealing with, I'm an alien being. I got all these things about me biologically I don't understand. And now not only has my father died, he died for me. And I got to tell you, there is a depth to that. Again, not to undermine your experience with the film. I'm just saying myself. I feel like there's a depth to that a lot of people overlook. So again, all films are subjective. That's how it struck you, and I respect that. But I got to tell you, for me, I experienced it a completely different way, and I just don't agree. But hey, we're allowed to disagree. That's the fun of being film fans, Nicholas. I'm going to thank you for sharing your opinion on that with me. Devilman writes, John, I'm so happy for you and awesome life you've lived. You are a great man. I wish all men were like you. Oh, I don't. Believe me, I don't. I got my flaws. Ask my mom, ask my wife. I got my flaws. Definitely do. But hey, we just all live our best life, right? We all just do the best we can, and we try to be a little bit better tomorrow than we are today. And sometimes we succeed at that. Sometimes we fail at that, but we do the best we can. But thank you so much for the kind words, man. I really appreciate that. This is really nice of you. All right, Luke1234 writes, if you could go back in time, which Star Wars would you want to see opening weekend? Ooh, your favorite, Episode 6, that's Return of the Jedi. Majority favorite, Episode 5, Empire. Or the last one that started it all, Episode 4, A New Hope. I got to go New Hope. Because, to be there, the world didn't know. The world didn't know how the world was going to change with that movie. It completely shifted and changed pop culture, and it has been, and it continues to this day, to be the biggest, most impactful thing pop culture has ever had happen was Star Wars. I would suggest, looking around to make sure Scott Mantz isn't around anywhere, even more than the Beatles. Even more, I think the impact Star Wars had on pop culture is still embedded in the DNA of the pop culture. And I think if I had the opportunity to go back to when it all started, to be at an opening weekend for that, I think that would be awesome. So that's the one I would pick. Even though it's not my favorite out of the bunch, that's the one I would go to. All right, Corny Collins writes, some movies I feel like I need to pause and do something else and pick up later. It can just be overwhelming or boring, and I need to take a break from it. Do you do this, or do you think a movie should be watched from beginning to end when possible? I think a movie should be watched from beginning to end when possible. But also understand that while saying that, when we watch TV shows, there are commercial breaks, yet we still enjoy the shows. I got friends who love even like streaming shows, Netflix shows. People will pause, run, make a phone call, use the bathroom, grab something from the fridge, come back to the couch, then hit play again. I mean, you're perfectly fine. You're perfectly fine if you watch, a movie a little disjointedly. But ideally, the filmmakers put these movies together in such a way that they're meant to be experienced in progression, right? And this is to lead into this, and this is to lead in this, and hopefully setting up this emotion will lead into a certain reaction we have in the next scene. So ideally, it is best to watch a movie all in one sitting. But do I believe you ruin your experience if you take a break or a pause or whatever? No, I don't believe that ruins the experience at all. I don't think that ruins the experience. It's not the ideal situation, but I think you're perfectly fine otherwise as well, Corny. All right, Emmanuel Ericart writes, the movie recommendation for today, Idiocracy. We talk about that movie a lot, aka Twitter, the documentary. Song recommendation for the day, Mando Dio, Dance with Somebody. I'm not sure which that one is, but yeah, Idiocracy is definitely one we've talked about a lot in this show. It's a good one. Ed Minty writes, never watched them before, but just started watching Studio Ghibli films. Nice. Wow. These films are so good, emotive. Glad I can watch them in the original Japanese with subtitles too. Castle in the Sky is my favorite so far, but Grave of the Fireflies is just so sad. Dude, I've talked about Grave of the Fireflies many times. That was one that I was late to the party to, was Grave of the Fireflies. But it's like a Schindler's List to me. And Detroit, the movie that came out a couple of years ago. Schindler's List, Detroit. Movies I love. Love those movies. I can't watch them again. They do the job of impacting me and give me this emotional impact, but it's such a heaviness that I can't watch it again. I love them. I recommend them. I'm glad I saw them, but I can't watch them again. That's just me. I can't watch them again. Grave of the Fireflies is one of those films. I just felt like that movie was taking a baseball bat to your balls. I mean, oh God, it'll wreck you. Grave of the Fireflies will wreck you. And if you're somebody who, like, you got a kiss, like, oh, here's an animated film, Grave Fire. Oh, look, you got this brother and sister, and oh, this is going to be so good. Let's sit down and watch this again. Don't do it. Don't do it. That movie wrecked me. I was a wreck. I loved it. It's gorgeously made. It's a wonderful film, but it wrecked me. I was a mess after watching that movie. So just something to keep in mind, though. Piero writes, "Hey, Gio, I'm 3 episodes into the morning show, loving it. That was another real pleasant surprise show for me. Nothing that Apple TV was coming out with looked all that interesting to me. But I'll tell you what, morning show is great. And then For All Mankind, also really, really great. So there's a few things on Apple TV that you should really be checking out." Daniel Hinosha writes, "I know it's selfish, but this lockdown really sucks." Dude, no, it's not selfish. It's cool. It's fine. Something is frustrating. We say it's frustrating. We understand there are bigger issues and it needs to be done. And that's cool. But we're still allowed to be a little bit frustrated when something happens. Like, for instance, I don't mind a stupid 21-year-old girl going, "I planned all year for this. This sucks." I get that. I do blame her for still going out and going onto a crowded beach, rubbing her stupid head up against, 1,000 other people on the beach and becoming a transmitter of it. Yeah, I blame her for that. But if she stayed at home and said, "This sucks. I planned all year for this spring break," I get it. Yeah, it does suck. It sucks that I couldn't go to Florida and go to WrestleMania this year with my wife to celebrate her birthday. That sucks. Yeah, it does. But we understand we're still going to do the right thing and we're still going to be smart about it. And we're still going to take precautions. So yeah, so don't worry about complaining, Daniel. It does suck. Look, there's no pretending it doesn't suck. This bullshit sucks. But it is what it is. And so we're putting on our big boy and big girl pants and we're dealing with it. And we're going to get this BS behind us. We're going to do the right things. We're going to deal with it. But we're still allowed to bitch a little bit. I'm going to bitch and moan and complain. I miss going to the movies. I miss going to restaurants. One of my daily routines, and you guys if you saw the walk and talk that I did, thoughts on walks that I did, one of my daily routines is 3 or 4 days a week. I go for this walk. I walk to downtown Burbank. I go to this hookah lounge / restaurant that has this big outdoor patio called Cafe O in Burbank. I love it. And I like to go out there, walk down there, bring my iPad, sit there and work. I like to go there and write all my show notes, do some of my research, send my show notes out to Ray, and then take a walk home. It's part of my routine. I love that as a part of my routine. I love going to restaurants. I love hanging out. It sucks that we can't do that. It does. But we deal with it. And if we're dealing with it, it's okay to bitch and moan and cry about it a little bit too, because I'm going to bitch and moan and cry about it. You're allowed to as well. It's all cool. All right. Anthony Lucalanu writes, "Just finished watching for a few dollars more." You're following along with the stuff you're doing. Not as good as A Fistful of Dollars, but still a good film in its own right and a worthy sequel. Absolutely. And I agree. Not quite as good as A Few Dollars or A Few Dollars More, or not quite as good as A Fistful of Dollars. I agree, but a great movie in its own right. Absolutely. And I'm glad you're getting through them. You're moving at a pretty good pace through them. Grant Askew writes, "Speed is one of my all-time favorite action movies. Definitely one to watch." Pop quiz, hot shot. What movie was just referencing that? Pop quiz, hot shot. Maybe was that Bumblebee that I saw him watching Speed? No, maybe it was something else. I was just watching a movie where they were referencing the movie Speed. What was it? Damn it, I can't remember which movie it was that I was just watching and they were referencing Speed and now I can't remember. Anyway, Speed was great. Speed was great. And it not only introduced us to kind of at that point a resurgent Keanu Reeves. How many times has he had a resurgence? Anyway, but it's great. Speed is wonderful. You know what? I haven't watched that in a while, Grant. I haven't watched Speed in a while. Maybe that's another one I need. And Jeff Daniels is in that too, by the way. Jeff Daniels, who is always going to be seen as a second fiddle dude. And maybe that's fine because he's made a great career out of it. Because he was a second fiddle dude in Speed. He's a second fiddle dude in Dumb and Dumber, one of the greatest comedies of all time. A movie in which, if I'm not mistaken, Jim Carrey got like $7 million for. And I think Jeff Daniels got like $100,000 or $150,000 for. I'm sure a lot more after residuals and things like that, I'm sure. But if I'm not mistaken, I think that he got like $100,000 or $150,000, something like that, whereas Jim Carrey got millions. But that's what, I mean, Jim Carrey was the name star at the time, so I get it. But Jeff Daniels is awesome. I love Jeff Daniels. And if you haven't seen his show, that was it called Newsroom? Was that the name of the show? Oh my God, he was so good in Newsroom. Anyway, go check that out if you get a chance. Anyway, thanks for sharing your recommendation, Grant. I appreciate that. Jorge Lugo writes, "Hey, John, big fan from Monterrey, Mexico. Thank you so much for writing in from there, dude. Love your work. I just finished watching Bong Joon-ho's The Host. Which other of his movies do you like?" Well, obviously the new one, but I'm glad you brought up The Host. That's the one I normally go back to. Because what a lot of people don't get, there are some people today, especially after, Parasite, there are a lot of people who've gone back and started watching some of his older films, and they get to The Host, and people are really liking The Host. But you got to understand, because what year did it come out again? Hold on a second. Let me just bring this up. 2006. This movie came out 14 years ago, okay? Came out 14 years ago. And for those of you who don't know much about it, it's this monster movie and all this kind of stuff and whatever. But in watching it today, looking at the visual effects of the monster, remember that movie was made 14 years ago. And I remember at the time, when it came out, I'm like, one of the things I was completely floored with that movie over was the visual effects on the monster. I was completely floored by it. I mean, today you'll notice some things, but you gotta keep in mind it was 14 years ago. Now, I also really like Snowpiercer, although I'm not as big of a Snowpiercer fan as a lot of other people are, but I am a fan of Snowpiercer. I do like it. I just don't like it on the same level that a lot of other people do. I can't remember, did he direct Okja or did he just write it? I can't remember off the top of my head, but yeah, the one I always go back to is The Host. And by the way, Parasite is actually my favorite film of his for many reasons, but if other than that, it is The Host. Okay. Anyway, Jaron Morris writes, in Last of Us 2, I wonder how Ellie is going to react when she finds out the truth about what happened in the hospital at the end of The Last of Us 1. Thoughts? Also, I'm excited for Final Fantasy VII just because I can't wait to hear Sephiroth, amazing theme. Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how much they update the music in that as well. I know that they've got the preview out that you can play, but I'm going to wait till the full version out because I've spent a lot of time in my life. What happens at the end of Last of Us 1, refusing to let her be sacrificed for the greater good. I mean, when she finds, first of all, I don't know if she's going to find that out in this next game or not. I don't know. But it is one of the most dramatic endings to a video game ever. And it's one of the reasons why I say almost no video, everybody says their favorite video game is really cinematic. No, they're not. There are a few exceptions though. God of War is one of them. I believe Uncharted is one of them. And one of the main reasons I really feel like Last of Us is one of them too, is that incredible ending. It leaves you, it's because it asks a moral question. It poses it. I love movies or TV shows or even video games that put us in a position where we go, legit, I don't know what I would have done. And that's great. And it's going to be interesting to see if they explore that in Last of Us 2. All right. Chris Listenfeld writes, watched Skyfall again last night. Hadn't seen it in a while. God, what an incredible film. Roger Deakins, man. That movie's great. That movie's great. Now, I know a lot of people that Skyfall is their favorite Bond movie. Mine is actually still the first Daniel Craig movie, Daniel Craig as Bond film, Casino Royale. That one is still my favorite Bond film. But Skyfall is incredible. And if I'm not mistaken, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe Skyfall was the first Bond movie. And again, I might be wrong about this. I think Skyfall was the first Bond movie to join the $1 billion club. I could be wrong, but I think that was the first Bond film to join the $1 billion club. But anyway, correct me if I'm wrong about that. But yeah, what a film. I liked it so much. Okay, Major Tom writes, Because of the earthquake here in Utah yesterday, and by the way, I hope everybody's doing well there, my workplace shut down until inspectors say it's safe to go back. Until that happens, I guess I'm stuck watching movies. Whatever will I do? Oh yeah, watch Earthquake from 1974 with Charlton Heston. And there are some good, look, I find natural disaster movies are a guilty pleasure of mine, right? Whether you're talking about like the volcano or Dante's Peak, whether you're talking about Twister, whether you're talking about what was the one? Was it the big? Whatever. The day after, whatever. I love natural disaster movies. I'm a big sucker for those, and why not? Why not get in there and watch that today? That's a good one, Major Tom. All right, Hayden Lee writes, one of two. Hey, John and crew. I want to say thanks for what you and your team does. Oh, thank you so much, man. I appreciate that. I appreciate all the consistent hard work and dedication you put into your show. 2 of 2. You were right about what Regal Unlimited. They sent an email the other day about it, and thanks for being a good Canadian kid. Your show makes my day. Oh, thank you so much for that, Hayden. I really appreciate it. It's always nice when somebody just wants to write in to say something kind. And yeah, listen, so Regal Unlimited and AMC A-List, they are the two big prominent movie subscription services, if you will, like a membership. You know, A-List, you pay $22-23 a month. You get to go up to 3 movies a week in any format, Prime, 3D, whatever. Regal Unlimited is a similar plan to that. So a lot of people were asking, should we cancel our AMC A-List or Regal Unlimited? I mean, the theaters are closed. And what both A-List and Regal have done, and I think it's a very good move on both of their parts, is they have let their members, such as myself and probably many of you, know that they are automatically freezing those accounts. So we won't be getting charged, all that kind of stuff. And then they'll activate it again once the theaters open again. I thought that was a very smart move. And one of the two, I can't remember if it was AMC or Regal, even just announced, for this inconvenience too, we're going to give you a free +1. Like, you're going to have one, when we reopen again, not only can you come to a movie with your membership again, we're going to give you a free guest for one of them. That's a nice little thing. They don't have to do that, but that's a nice little thing to do as well. So again, I think that's a smart thing on both their parts. And again, Hayden, thank you for sending that in, and thank you for the kind words. I appreciate that. All right, Daniel writes, hey, John, I want to say thank you for making my day. Oh, it's my pleasure, man. Thank you. I don't mean to be rude, but you haven't done a video about my question on how the multiverse will be used in the MCU going forward. Well, if that was one of the $50 ones, we have been getting caught up on all the $50 ones. We're only about 2 weeks behind right now, probably less than 2 weeks behind. So hang tough. They're coming. We keep cranking the questions out. It will be coming. So not a problem. And it's not a problem. By the way, you don't have to send in a super chat to ask me. You can just send me a straight email about that. I appreciate you supporting the channel with that, but you could have emailed that to me. It's totally good. Keep your eyes open. We do have more $50 questions to go. For those of you who don't know what he's talking about, when somebody sends in support of like a $50 or more, which is incredibly generous, and really we're grateful around here for that support. What we like to do is not only answer the question live, but we also like to make a little standalone video of it as well, and we put that up on the YouTube page. And so we are a little bit behind because we got more of them came in than we were expecting, but we're going to get them all answered. Keep your eyes open for it. It will be coming. All right. 20 Jackson Schaefer writes, are movies like Along Came a Spider or the Jack Ryan movies considered sequels? It's the same character, but the sequel doesn't need the original to make sense. Love your channel. Keep up the good work in these crazy times. Well, thanks so much for that, Jackson. That's a really big super chat. Thank you so much for supporting us on that level, man. It's a matter of semantics, right? It's a matter of semantics. With the Jack Ryan movies, particularly the Harrison Ford Jack Ryan movies, right? They do reference the other movies. Either directly or indirectly, they do reference the other movies. So in that sense, I would consider that a sequel. However, I don't recall in either Patriot Games or Clear and Present Danger, I don't recall any reference directly or not to Hunt for Red October. So would I consider like things like Patriot Games, Clear and Present Danger, would I consider either of those a sequel to Hunt for Red October? Well, I think there's enough there that I wouldn't correct anybody if they called them a sequel, but I don't know if I would call it a sequel myself. It's a good question. I think that's worth a really good discussion. I kind of wish Rob was here or Aaron or Chris were here right now, because that's a good one to have a discussion about. But I think it's more of a matter of semantics. I guess the bottom line is this. The way I would approach it personally is, if they are directly referencing previous movies, then I would consider it a sequel. If not, I don't. But that's a very loose interpretation. So I don't know. That's a really good question. What do you guys think about what Jackson is proposing there? Would you consider them sequels or not? Jump down to the comments section below and let me know your thoughts. All right. Thanks for the question, Jackson. It's a good one. All right. Super Pacino writes, hi, John. Hi, Super. Thanks for sending in the support. We appreciate it. Let's see here. Star Wars Rocks writes, hi, John. Have you read the release schedule for Disney Plus for April? Because Collider have an article about it. No, I haven't. I mean, I get an update from Disney. I get a press update from Disney every month about what's opening next this month on Disney Plus. So no, I haven't looked at, I haven't even looked at the email yet. I've got it in my inbox. I haven't looked at it yet, and I have not seen that article yet myself, but it is out there. I mean, the information's out there, so I'll check that out when I get a chance. All right. Anthonymous writes, I love the little play on words in there. When do you think that the coronavirus affected the filming and then post of potential Oscar contenders that would release in October, November, and December? Well, I mean, here's the thing, though. The question is that they have affected filming or that they will. Because right now, if we're able to start to get back to normal, say a month from now, and I'm not saying we are, I'm just playing the what if game a little bit. If we're able to get things back to normal in the next month, month and a half, whatever, would films like those be affected? Yes. But would that much of a break affect them terribly? My guess would be no. Inconvenient, yes. It's probably a pain in the ass, and they're probably gonna have to bust their butts just to get back things on schedule. But I don't think all that much. Now, if this stretches into 2.5 months, 3 months, 4, well then yeah, that becomes a completely different question, right? With a completely different answer and a completely different set of circumstances. As things stand right now, I would still say no, probably not that much of an inconvenience. And by the way, a lot of post-production work on movies that were already filmed is still moving ahead, because you can do a lot of post-production while maintaining social distancing. So post-production is probably, and is, I know for a fact, is still moving ahead on a lot of movies today. It's the production that isn't. I would suggest too that a lot of movies that would be coming out this Oscar season, their production was probably already done. They were probably already finished production and they're in the post-production stage. That notwithstanding, theoretically, I still think it comes down to how long we're going to be in this inconvenience. So we'll see. Good question, though. Joseph Hudson writes, could Onward get a re-release because of the current situation? Onward could. You know, I was making the argument earlier about why you probably won't see that with something like Bloodshot. But Onward might be a horse of a different color, because it is a Pixar film. It's a really good movie. It obviously got affected by everything that was going on with its opening. It only had a week or two, really, maybe 2.5 weeks in theater, and it was under terrible circumstances. That might be one they decide to do a re-release on, because that could be one where investing $15 million more in marketing for a re-release, you would more than make up for with what you get in the box office. So I think, Joseph, that is one that could get it. I'm not saying they will, but I think it's one that they could do that with. All right. Only got a few minutes left here, guys. Calvin Bose writes, I recommend Phantom of the Paradise. I'm not familiar with that one. Let me look that one up here quick. Phantom of the 1974, Paul Williams. Really? Directed by Brian. It's directed by Brian De Palma. Why am I not familiar with the film? And William Finley, Paul Williams, Jessica Harper, Garrett Graham, Archie Hahn, You know what? I can tell you straight up, I don't think I'm familiar with the film. Thank you for this. Obviously, if it's directed by Brian De Palma, it should be on my radar. Thank you. This is why I learn stuff from the audience every day. This is one of the great things I love about doing this show. I learn stuff from the audience every day. Now, by the way, you guys heard me say I only have a few minutes more. Some of you will remember that I was saying, hey, while we're going through this nonsense, I'm just going to do the show as long as it needs to be. I've been having a problem with YouTube. Here's the problem I've been having with YouTube. The problem I've been having with YouTube is when my live show goes more than 2 hours, then for like 3 or 4 hours while the show is up, let's say I go 2 hours and 25 minutes. What happens is the first 25 minutes of the show aren't there. Now, 3 or 4 hours later, after YouTube processes it more, then the first 25 minutes show up. But a lot of people are like, where's the first half of the show? If I do the show for 2 hours and 18 minutes, the first 18 minutes are missing. When I do the show 2 hours and 21 minutes, the first 21 minutes of the show are missing. I don't know why this is happening, but it's happening. Okay, so I'm going to try to keep the show to 2 hours or less, at least until YouTube works whatever bug this is out, because it's been kind of annoying for people trying to watch the show after the live stream is done. So that's why I'm going to try to keep it to 2 hours. But we're almost through all the questions. I'm going to keep rolling here. Santos Henderson writes, what are some elements you'd like to see in the next Superman movie, if we get it? I don't feel like we ever really got one from the DCEU, like Rob said. I mean, I don't know. I try not to play, as a film fan, and I've done it all the time, but I'm trying not to do it anymore. I try not to play the game of, this is what they should have in their movie. I'd rather just let the filmmakers make the movie and then see what they have to present to us. Although, like I said, I am very guilty of it. I have done it, and I probably still do it from time to time, but I'm trying not to do that. But what elements? I don't know. Look, the only thing I would suggest is that the lesson we learned from Superman Returns is that it's great if you want to make your comic book movie something more than just a comic book movie. Because the way I've always described Superman Returns is Superman Returns is a really good movie, but it's a really bad comic book movie, if that makes any sense. Like, you can't have a movie called Superman and have the biggest action sequences be Superman versus a falling plane and Superman versus a mountain. And, you know, you still have to make it a comic book movie. Like, look at what Marvel is doing right now. They're playing around with genres so much. They have comedies and thrillers and political intrigue and all this kind of stuff. But at their core, they still are comic book movies. And if you're going to do that with a superhero, like with Joker, it's different. Joker's a different kind of character. We come with a different set of expectations for Joker. But if you're going to make a Superman movie, make it a Superman movie. So my one suggestion to Warner Brothers would be, if you're going to do another Superman movie, you got to make sure it has action elements. Do whatever else you want to do. Delve into the drama of it. Delve into the character more. Do all that kind of stuff. But at the same time, make sure it's still essentially a Superman movie. Because again, like I said, to me, Superman Returns was a pretty good movie. It just wasn't a very good comic book movie. And I loved Brandon Routh, by the way. I love Brandon Routh as Superman. But yeah, that's my thoughts on that. All right, time for one or two more quick ones here, guys. K Major writes, hey John, just did some research and you make a good point. 8 out of 10 of the past Best Picture winner films were released after August. The 2 that won were released in January. That's an interest. I didn't realize that. I did not realize that. See, this is a great thing. It's not just me on here. Now as we're doing the show, we've got thousands of other film fans and film fan community members doing research and bringing up interesting stats like that. Thank you, K Major, for sharing that. That's awesome. I like that stat. All right. Luis Dotson writes, thoughts on Stay Tuned with John Ritter. Oh, I love John Ritter, but you know what? I don't know that I ever did watch Stay Tuned. Thoughts on Stay Tuned with John Ritter, a movie where he buys satellite TV from the devil and gets stuck into the TV show's guilty pleasure of mine. You know what? Again, Love John Ritter. He's got a number of classics from that era as well, but I don't think I ever saw Stay Tuned. But I'm so glad you brought that up, and now there's probably a bunch of other people. I'm sure there's a bunch of you guys watching right now that have seen it. Jump down in the comment section and let them know what you thought of it. All right, last question I'm going to take today, and then Cody and Mr. Hoover and Jerome and everybody else, don't worry, we're going to start tomorrow's show with your question. When we get to the live questions tomorrow, we're going to start off with yours, so don't worry, your questions are going to get answered. So K Major, no, that was K Major. Dylan Valenti gets our final question today, who writes, John, I live in Florida. I'm in high school, and all I see on Instagram are pics of my friends at the beach. Why are my friends so stupid? Again, I think it's just a human thing. When we're 21 or maybe a bit younger, we are actual idiots. And I think those of us who were 21 and we don't remember us being idiots when we were 21, that's just because we were too stupid to know that we were stupid. I don't know. I see that stuff going on, Dylan, and I'm just like, what kind of future does the human race have if these fucking morons, look how stupid these kids are. Get off my lawn. But seriously, look how stupid these kids are. I've been planning this a whole year. Oh, boo-hoo, you selfish little twit. Anyway, I don't know. But I'm glad, Dylan, that you are one of them that has common sense. So I'm grateful for that. Anyway, guys, that'll do it for today's installment of the John Campea Show. Thank you guys so much for being here and making this a part of your day. Don't forget, me and Robert Meyer Burnett will both be back for tomorrow's episode of the John Campea Show. Make sure you guys come back and join us then. And again, just for fun, Ann and I are going to do a little live streaming a little bit later of us playing some Mario Kart. So if you got nothing to do, you're looking for some pastime, come hang out with us as we go and play a little bit of Mario Kart. All right, guys, that will do it for me for now. Thank you so much for being here and being a part of the show today. My name is John Campea, my friends, and until next time, be safe, be considerate, be caring, be with the ones that you love, and let's take care of each other, shall we? So until next time, my friends, bye-bye.